Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. All right, and as you can see, I titled it, this should be an interesting lesson. And this is going to be a lesson that I have a little more precepts than usual. And Lord willing, I want to go not too in depth, but in a somewhat of a chronological order, okay, explaining certain things that ultimately lead up to this point that we're in, okay, things dealing with the beast, you know, and a little bit of history on that and how it all ties into here and now, okay, and where in the scriptures are these things written, okay, because as I was sitting here, I was meditating, and I remember there was a while back. Of course, we're in the truth. We know the MOTB. We know all these things, but sometimes you may not be too familiar with. You hear it all the time, but you may not be too familiar with. Okay, well, who or what actually is the beast? We always talk about it, the image. The MOTB, all it is, but who who is it? How does it play a role? What specific scriptures actually tie into what? And it's important to know these things because this is a key part of prophecy. Okay, you need to know prophecy, but you need to know, well, where are the prophecies in the scriptures? Because a lot of them are written in a way where if you don't understand it, you won't be able to find it out. You have to decipher it, and you have to link verse with verse to find out, okay, this applies to this time period, and then now it's happening, so on and so forth. And it ultimately leads to what? The MOTB or the Charagma. Okay, so I'm going to start off here with the book of Revelation. Now, we're going to go back to start off with the time of the Apostle John, okay, which we all know who the Apostle John was, right? The Apostle John, one of the disciples of the Lord who became an apostle. And the book of Revelation was a series of revelations that was given to the Apostle John to write down, to give to the seven churches of Asia Minor, all right, which ultimately the Lord had it set up to where we still have it today, because a lot of those prophecies were to be fulfilled in this time. A lot of those prophecies, some of the things in the book of Revelation happened, some were related to his time, but some were also related to the times, really a lot of them related to the times that would come after. Okay, that's why the book of Revelation has a lot of prophecies in there, and a lot of people have a hard time understanding and breaking down the book of Revelation because of the prophecies, because they don't have the spirit of prophecy, so they can't understand it and decipher it. All right, so let's take a look at the Apostle John. The Apostle John, we know was banished to the island of Patmos, right? Which I believe they say it's a part of the if I'm saying it right, the Cycladic, or Cyclades, the islands over there, which he was banished over there. Now they say that originally they try to boil him in hot oil, but nothing happened to him. So they banished him over there, and he was on the salt mines over there working. Now, as he was there, the Lord gave him those revelations, and the Caesar at the time, I believe, was Domitian. So this, roughly around 93, 95 AD. Okay, so this is after the siege of Jerusalem. This is after, the Romans had come and broken down the temple and so on and so forth. Okay, and it shows you that the Apostle John, pretty much the Lord had it to where he wasn't, involved or included in that siege. Obviously, because the Lord had warned them about the siege that was to come. Okay, so this is the book of Revelation, chapter 1, verse 1. And it says, the revelation of Yahushua HaMashiach, which the Most High gave unto him, to shew unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And it says it must shortly come to pass because the way we perceive time is different than the way, you know, it's perceived either in the spirit world or by the powers, right? Because there's scriptures that talk about a short season, and for us, we're like, a short season, like 500 years, 1,000 years, that's not a short season. It doesn't feel like a short season to us, but nevertheless, which shall shortly come to pass, and we are still in that time, okay, of it shortly coming to pass, because we are now in the time of the fulfillment of Revelation, the 13th chapter, okay? It says here, and he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John, who bear record of the word of God and of the testimony of Yahushua HaMashiach and of the things that he saw. So the Apostle John actually saw these things while he was there. Okay, like the Apostle Tahar always mentions, like a 3D holograph, movie. Like you in it, you looking around, and you seeing it, and you writing down what you're seeing. And we always have to keep in mind that as the Apostle John is writing down what he's seeing, he's writing it down with writing it down as best as he can. Okay, but he's seeing things in the future. Now, the things he's seen in the future, since they didn't exist at his time, there weren't any names for them. Certain terminologies we use today wasn't used back then. So he's describing things he's seeing as best as he can with the vocabulary he has, right? So that means you're gonna see like locusts, scorpions, the tails, this, that, because the terminology we use today to describe certain things wasn't the same that was used back then. Nevertheless, if you have the spirit, you can understand. Verse 3, blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. And right now we're at that time, all right, of this being at hand. So that's why it's important to read. You need to actually read the scriptures and understand what you are reading, because the answer is in there. It's in the pudding. Inside joke. But so now let's go to the book of Revelation, the 13th chapter. So when you read in the book of Daniel, it talks about the beast. In the book of 2nd Esdras, there's reference made to it, but it's in the form of an eagle. And when you come to the book of Revelation, that's where John really goes into. He sees a lot of these visions concerning this beast. So the beast is an important, it's an important topic, so to speak. Yeah, you see, that's just, that's just Jake. That's just like you tell them, they just, no, that's not what. But then you ask him, well, okay, so if he didn't see the MOTB, what did he see? Why? Wait, well, the scripture says, boy, man. So nevertheless, Revelation 13. In Revelation 13, right? Let's actually start at the top, because the beast. When we talk about the beast everything has a foundational level, and then you have the coating right on the top of it, right? So when you deal with the beast, the dragon, the old serpent, the devil, Satan, in some context, when you deal with the terms the devil and Satan, it's really all talking about Esau, okay? Esau, Edom, because the people, right? The people at the foundational level, the people that make up the beast are the Edomites, okay? Esau, Edom. And then on the outer level, the shell, right, is when the Edomites are in power, either as the Greeks or the Romans or the NATO and the EU. But NATO, the EU, the Romans, the Greeks, these were Edomites, okay? So at their core level, if the base level, the safest way is to go is the beast really is Esau, his power structure, or his power system. Okay, so when you go to the book of Revelation, chapter 13. Now, the book of Revelation, the 13th chapter, we know is talking about the beast, but you need to understand the details of it, because there's times when it is dealing with the beast overall, but then it highlights specifically certain parts of the beast, right? Or certain, because you when you read from about the 10th verse on down, it talks about the beast, but it's really describing America, okay, which is a part of the beast. There's one part of the beast, you know, so it's really dealing with the beast as a whole, but sometimes it gets very specific, you know, on a detailed level, and then sometimes it talks on a whole. So let's start with the first verse. It says, and I stood upon the sand of the sea, right, because he was on the island. It says, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. So the first beast, right, the core, as the ancient pagan Roman Empire, which they were also known as the Greco-Roman Empire, right? And John says here that it had 7 heads and 10 horns. The 7 heads and 10 horns are representative, really, of the different strongholds, so to speak, that made together that Roman Empire. Because when you go into the history of Rome being over there in Italy, when it started to expand, it started to take over the neighboring lands, and you had different strongholds that were already there ruling, right, different peoples. And as Rome grew, it started to assimilate and include those and add it to subject it under Rome to create the empire. Because you have Rome, that's a city, but then you have the Roman Empire, which now had jurisdiction over Spain, France, Greece, you know, and even all the way into the east. And what the Romans did was, when they took you over, they would pretty much make you a part of Rome. Instead of just being, you know, somebody we conquered, you can be a part of Rome, allowing Rome to expand. That's why they offered Roman citizenship. That's why Paul, being born over there in Cilicia, right, which is all the way in the east, when you cross the Hellespont and you come over there into modern day Turkey, Cilicia over there, Tarsus, he was a Roman citizen. Okay, so Rome offered, you know, citizenship and so on and so forth, which was a part of them expanding. Okay, so the 7 heads, when you go into it, you had the Greeks, the Romans, because Rome itself was one of the heads. You had the Greeks, the Romans, Hispania, which was like the old way of saying Spain. All right, you had the Gauls or Franks, which is the French. You had Germania Major, Germania Minor, and Britannia, right? So Germany and Britain, but going by their ancient names. All right, and the 10 horns were like the sub-levels of it. Okay, so you have maybe like over there in like Hispania or Gauls, you may have the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths, right? So there's like, it's like the higher level than the sub-level. Okay, and the 10 horns, in fact, you had the Visigoths, the Anglo-Saxons, the Lombards. Okay, you had the Heruli, the damn, what's that other A? You had the Anglo-Saxons, the I'll have it'll come. Alemanni, I believe Alemanni was on there. There we go. You had the Anglo-Saxons, you had the Visigoths, you have the Anglo-Saxons, you had the Lombards, you had the Alemanni, you had the Heruli, you had the Suebi, and so on and so forth. I can't remember all of them off the top. I had an acronym for it, all right, which was which made it easier to remember. You know, if you are interested, you can use that too. I think it was VALHAVSOB, right? Val, have, sob, right? So you have Val, Visigoths, you have Anglo-Saxons, you have L, Lombards, you have H, Heruli, you have A again, Alemanni, you have V, I mentioned Visigoths, damn, there's Vandals, all right, you have S, Suebi, you have O, Ostrogoths, and you have B, Burgundians, right? So Val, Have, Sob. So these were the ancient 10 horns, right? The specifics of it. And these were under the 7 heads. So all of this being Rome, you had over there the lands that they had taken over, and these are really just like the power structures, right? Now it says here, and upon it says 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, which were just like the power, the rulership. It says, and upon his head the name of blasphemy, and that's why they were called the ancient pagan Roman Empire. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. So now in verse 2, you're seeing the the beast that he's describing, it says was like unto a leopard. Now when you hear about the leopard, you should think about what? Daniel 7. Okay? Which the leopard is really associated with Alexander, all right? The Greeks, which was really started with Alexander. Okay? And that's why I mentioned in the beginning about the base foundational power structure of the beast being the Edomites. Because when the Esau really started to come into power, when you go to Nebuchadnezzar's dream, right? He had that statue, and on the statue you had the head of gold, which is the Babylonians. Then you had the chest, right? The chest, breastplate, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you had the Babylonians, and then you had the Medo-Persians, and then you had the Greeks, the Romans, and then you had the system today. So from the Greeks on down to today, it's really been Esau ruling. So when he came up into power as the Greeks, all the way up until now, it's Esau ruling. The Greeks, the Romans, America, all these, you know. And of course, they had that interrupted rule, or that interruption in their reign during what they call the Dark Ages, right? The time of the Byzantine Empire, which you had Israelites that were reigning in there or ruling, okay? And they call it the Holy Roman Empire and so on and so forth. Okay, but it shows you that the beast really started with with Alexander, which was an Edomite, right? The Esau coming up into power. So it says, and his feet were as the feet of a bear. Now, we know that the bear represents Russia, but Russia is not a part of the beast. Okay, but when you look at, if you look at for example, the image, going back to the dream the Nebuchadnezzar had, when you look at the image, you had the head and then you had the feet, and the feet symbolize what? The end. Okay, because ultimately this Esau's power structure is going to end with the Lord bringing that destruction. And who's going to be one of the main factors in that destruction? You're going to have the Russians. They're not a part of the beast, but they're going to partake in the ending of the beast. All right, along with Yahushua coming back. So the World War III, which Russia is going to be a very big key character or role in that. All right, when you read in the book of Ezekiel, the 38th chapter. And then you're going to have Yahushua, which is that stone, which is also going to come with the angels and destroy this place. Okay, and then it says here, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion, which represents Great Britain. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So going back, starting with the Greeks all the way up until now, right? The Apostle John was showed all of this. Now, he didn't understand it. Okay, a lot of these men of old, when they saw these visions, they didn't understand who the hell, what, you know? And when you read in the book of Daniel, that's why Daniel said that his thoughts and his cogitations troubled him, because he's like, what the hell am I seeing? You know, Ezra, they're looking at all this, they getting shook, because when you get these visions, they're intense. You know, you wake up in a cold sweat, you like, because it feels so real. You ever had those dreams that feel so real? You wake up and you disoriented, you confused as to whether you just woke up into a dream or the dream was the reality, you know? Then you got to take a second to really gather your bearings, right? So as they're seeing these things, these dreams, these visions that are feeling very real, and the intensity of what's going on in them, they were like, yo, you know, but they didn't really understand them. And that makes sense, because now us being at the end, we can look, you know, we can see everything clearly, because there are certain pieces that they didn't have back then, certain events that needed to take place in order for these things to make sense. And now here we are in the future, we're seeing all of those pieces, we have those pieces, so we can put it together to see the full picture. So people get offended talk when, you know, when we say, starting with the elders and apostles on down, that we got 100% truth. They get offended. But why wouldn't we? The Lord has given us everything we need to have it. Okay? I mean, really, you shouldn't be offended. Why? Well, if we have 100% truth, and you know, well, 100% truth is out there, wouldn't you want to go and try to get 100% truth? You know? You say 100% truth. Well, shit, if I don't got it, I'm gonna try to go get it. You know, I want 100% truth too, right? But now instead, Jake would rather, nah, then I'll know all, you know, controversial, right? Verse 3, it says, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. Remember, Rome was one of those heads, and that was the fall of Rome, or the Roman Empire. It says, and his deadly wound was healed. So when you read in verse 3, these are what, pretty much like one sentence separated by a semicolon. And you may think, oh, well, that's going through. No, this is hundreds of years. Okay? Because the fall of the Roman Empire, right, all the way up until the deadly wound being healed, the revival during the Renaissance period, that was not, you know, just over 10 years, the next day, 20 years. No, that was like, what, 1,000 years? Okay? Because when the deadly wound was healed up until, no, when he was wounded to death up until his deadly wound was healed, you had in between, which was the reign of Jake. Okay? And that's written of in Revelation, the 20th chapter, which goes to show you that this isn't talking about the beast, or his image is not dealing with Cesare Borgia. Okay? That doesn't make any sense. How the hell, when did Cesare die and come back and was healed? Right? And the beast was there. It says here it started with Alexander, right? Started all the way back at the Greek. So where was Cesare Borgia? He was there during the time of the Renaissance era, but the beast existed before then. A lot of these things don't make sense when you really break it down to the core. Okay? And as we keep going, you'll see. So it says here, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast, because now you had that Renaissance art, that Renaissance music. And you know what a lot of these Edomites did? You wonder why they called it Renaissance, which means rebirth. Because when they came up into power, they kicked out the Moors, you know, out of Spain, because Spain was the one of the first European powers, right? When Esau came up in there, you had King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, you know, Christopher Columbus, and so on and so forth. When they started coming up, the conquistadors and the, you know, doing these voyages and conquests, they kicked out Jake, and then they took our stuff, and then they reclaimed it as theirs. Okay, or not reclaimed, they claimed it as theirs. And then they whitewashed a lot of images, cut off a lot of noses, try to pretty much remodel, right? Try to pretty much remodel and take credit for all of these things. And a big part of that was Job 9 and 24. Okay? To get a strong grasp or control over the world, it was going to be through that religion, that religious system. Okay? Through the image of Yahushai. I'm not talking about the image of the beast, but the depiction, I should say, right, of the truth. Because they're coming up into power. They're saying, well, you got all these dark images over here. That's working against us. So we can't destroy everything. So the ones we can, we destroy it. And then the ones we can, we modify. And then we spread these lies. It tells you in Revelation, the 20th chapter, that he was going to be loosed a little season to deceive the nations. So when his wound was healed and he came back into power, what do you think he did? Okay, yeah, it was a process that happened over time. It didn't happen overnight. Okay? And it says, and all the world wondered after the beast. And so they're like, yo, like, oh, they coming out with all this here. They, you know, this here, this, that is looking like, oh, so in amazement and awe. Right? Like, yo, this, you know, who can even come against them? But guess what? These major empires that came up into power, when they were in the zenith of their power, when the Most High set them up, it was thought of as, wow, this kingdom can never go down. That's what a lot of people thought about Rome. You know, this kingdom can never go down. What? You're crazy to even try to talk about taking down the Romans. And there were many attempts, but the Lord had them squashed because, hey, even the time of the Jewish Roman wars, the Lord had it squashed because prophecy needed to be fulfilled. And it tells you that in the book of Daniel, the 4th chapter, that the Most High setteth up, right? He raises up and takes down, and he sets up people to rule, because he rules in the kingdom of men. Okay. Verse 4, it says, and they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him. So as this beast came up into power, you know, you started with Europe, they came over here, they conquered, they took down the 10 tribes that were here, you know, they divided the lands that were here, the French, the British, the Spanish, okay, and then and they started going up, which eventually brought forth America, and then so on and so forth. All of this, their power came from, as it says, the dragon, which goes back to the original Roman Empire. And that's why when you look at the system today, everything is tailored back, or tailored after Rome. Okay, and there's many examples of that. You know, a lot of medical terms, a lot of when you do, if you do like a fitness, a lot of the terms they use are what? Latin. Okay, they're Latin terms. And you like, why of all languages, why Latin? Why everything got to go back to Latin? You know, you look at the building structures. The building structures go back to the Roman building structures, and the Roman building structures go back to the Edomite building structures over there in Petra. You know, because that's their style. That's their architectural structure. And it's the same people coming back under different shells to do the same thing, because that's them. Okay? So it says here, saying who is like unto the image of, now it says, and they worship the beast, saying who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemy, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. All right, so you know it's dealing with Khan. Yep, that's right. Dealing with America, because I remember I mentioned it's talking about the beast overall, but there's certain verses in there where it specifically highlights, you know, it'll highlight Babylon. Okay, now the 42 months, when you read in different chapters in the book of Revelation, you'll see this 42 months referred to the same time period, but it's referred to different ways. All right, it'll say sometimes 3.5 years. Okay, sometimes it'll say 1,203 score days, which is really all dealing with that 42 months. Okay, which is roughly 350 years. Okay, because if I'm not mistaken, 1,203 score days, which is 1,260, equates to roughly around 3.5, right, or 3.5 years, which is a spiritual 3.5 years, which is 350 years. And that was the roughly the time period from 1619, 1620 to 1969, 1970. Okay, and that was that time period is so important, because that time period was the bulk of Esau really having his foot over our neck. All right, where we suffered under them that period of time, and they had a thrilling time to rule for that period of time. But after that period of time, when they started trying to go, when you go to the book of Obadiah, it tells you that when they go up into the heavens, right, thence will I bring thee down. So around the 1970s, when they started doing their space flights, the Apollo and all these things, that signified the Lord starting to bring them down. And so they had a upward trend, but then after it hit that point, they started to go downward to now where we are. If you look in the world, this is where we are today. America hasn't been going up. It's been going down. All right. Now, and they don't even realize it. You got people that they're so desensitized to the times that they can't look back and say, yo, there's a big ass difference between the way the world was, you know, somewhat years back versus now. Because their mind is changing along with the times, that if next year is crazy, they're crazy with it. So to them it's normal. So they can't stop and say, oh, hell no, this is looking crazy as hell. You know? It says here, verse 6, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against the Most High, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. Yeah, and that's why you have a lot of these depictions. An example is even going back to the Renaissance era, I think they call it the finger of God, where you have Adam and supposedly the Most High touching fingers. I think they're naked or something like that, touching, you know, like reaching to touch each other's fingers or some shit, with naked babies flying all around. Okay, that's disrespect, you know. And I think that was by Michelangelo who painted it, and I could be wrong, but that's what my memory's telling me. Okay, and many other things. The list just goes on and on and on. It says, verse 7, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints. So who are the saints? The saints are the Israelites. Okay, that's what, Psalms 50 and 5. The saints are the Israelites, both the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Here, they'll deceive you and make you think a saint is just, oh, Saint, whatever her name is, Saint this, because she was good. She lived a nice whole. No, if you're not an Israelite, you're not a saint. That's it, point blank, period. All right. It says, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to what? And to overcome them. That's why when they came over there to West Africa, you know, and the various different parts, they were able to. Now you wonder, wait, hold on. If they had the power, they were ruling. Why didn't they go over there and grab up Moab? Why didn't they go and grab up Elam? Why specifically us? You come all the way there, West Africa, to come grab us, and then you trade us all around. Then this you know, you had the 10 tribes over here when you came here and committed these atrocities to them. But why just us? You see, people don't put two and two together and sit down and say, isn't that a little odd that when these people came into power, their main focus was coming against us? Why? Because of prophecy. Okay? That they should make war with the saints and overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And that's their rulership that they have. So that's their establishment as NATO, the European Union, all right, and America leading them, being at the head. It says here, so it started off back then, but the Lord had it to where eventually this is where it is ended up. And it's the same Edomites, all right, in power, doing this shit to fulfill prophecy, because that's the nation the Lord chose to fulfill the role or play the role of the beast. That as a nation of people. Okay, and it says here, verse 8, and all them that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. And that's why you have all these people that when you worship this this beast, you're down with them. You're gonna comply, okay? And you got people that do it. You don't even gotta tell them to do it. You know, they'll push your ass out the way so they can do it. You know, so you got people that, you know, I'll do it just to do what I gotta do. But you got people that say, no, I want to do this. You know, I love this. I love this. Like, I'm an American. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love this new things they're introducing. Man, you want to bring out a new technology, put that shit right here. You know, you got people that are all up into that. Now, Revelation 13 from 1 to 8 that we just read was more so the overview, right? The broad picture from the different time periods up until now, the overview, right? And when you go from verse 10 on down, it goes even more in depth, a little more into the future, dealing with America, the different democratic parties. We'll get to that, right? But I wanted to start with Revelation 13 and 1 to 8. All right, and then now transition, going more in depth. So when you go back to Rome, let's go back to Rome, right? Let's go back to Rome. Let's go deal with the time of they're in power, right? We're now at the last few Caesars, the Flavian dynasty, right? Which started with Vespasian and then followed by his two sons, Titus and Domitian. And remember, Domitian being that Caesar at the time of when John was on the island of Patmos. Okay, now taking it back a couple of years before that, you had, let me pull up the precept here first. You had us, of course, we were in, you know, Israel, you know, Jerusalem, so on and so forth, Judea, as it was known as a province, right? But you had Jake that we knew we were Israelites. We still had our customs. We were still, you know, doing the things that we do, right? You had a lot of wicked Israelites among us, as you do now. But in the book of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3, it says here, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. So how did that falling away come? It started with the Lord bringing the Romans against us, right? Destroying Jerusalem, causing us to run, scatter different areas, and that pretty much started that cycle and just led all the way up until now. All right, because after they had destroyed the temple and destroyed Jerusalem, it wasn't the same again. Okay, it wasn't the same again. They got to the point, I forgot, I think it was Hadrian or Trajan, one of those emperors, pretty much said that they forbid Jews from going back to Jerusalem. They said, no, you can't go back there, you know? So it was very, and then what they started to do was, that's when they started to put in all of these twists and turns and, you know, shit like that. Like today you wonder why people look at Christians and Jews as two different people. But when you read in the scriptures, you say, wait, tell me, hold on. If they called followers of Yahushai, which even prior to that, they called the followers of Serapis Christus Christians. But dealing with the time of Yahushai, if they called Yahushai's followers Christians, followers of Christ, which really it was Mashiach or Mashiachim, right? Followers of the anointed or anointed ones. Those people that were following him were Israelites, right? The bulk of them were what they were classified as Jews, because when you call somebody a Jew, the term Jew really refers to the tribe of Judah, but it was used as a collective term for Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, okay? But correctly, it really refers to the tribe of Judah. Nevertheless, they called us Jews. Those that followed Yahushua at the time were Israelites, quote unquote Jews, right? The bulk of them. So now how do you fast forward into the future and now you're creating a difference between Jew, he's Jewish, he's not Christian. But wait, time out. You realize that being a Jew is a nationality, being quote unquote Christian is a religion, right? So when you go to the time of Yahushua, when you had the Rome started to become quote unquote Christian, right? Constantine and Constantius or Tius, which I think was his father, and up until that time, they started to create that division, where now they said, if you're not, there was like this back and forth between Christians and Jews, and that started to create a wedge in there to separate it, to make it seem like they were different people, but they were all Israelites, and some of them were just following Yahushua. So it's not like a different kind of people, but they created that separation in there to further you or take you even further away from the truth. All right. So that's what they were saying. Going back to the time when after the temple was destroyed, they said, look, you can't go back there no more. You can look it up. They basically forbid Jake from going back to Jerusalem. Hey, we ain't even gonna let you go near that. All right. Now that falling away, like we said, dealing with 70 AD, you had this I think it was a procurator or a president of the area that was over Judea. All right, and I think that his name was Gessius Flores, and he was doing a lot of shit to provoke Jake. All right, and it got to the point where Jake got tired and then started revolting. Right, so starting around, we usually say 70 AD, but it was really from 66 AD to about 73 AD. All right, and a little over that. And Jake started revolting. And Jake was fighting back. And for a good couple of years, we pretty much had somewhat of autonomy. We could do what we want. Jake was actually minting coins with their faces on it, But then as things started getting more, right, which Nero was in power at that time, he sent over Vespasian, all right, said, yo, go deal with that, go shut it down. All right, and actually let's read about that. That's here in the book of Daniel chapter 9. All right, now this is, remember, the beast is still in power at this time, right? So Daniel chapter 9 and the last verse, the 27th verse, it says here, and he shall confirm. Matter of fact, I'll start at 26. It says, and after and after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off. The Messiah is Yahushua. It says, but not for himself. Woo, wait, time out. You have people talking about, no, 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 ain't no man come to die for Israel and blase, blase, blah. In the Old Testament, we're reading here in the book of Daniel. What does this mean? What does Daniel 9:26 mean when it says, after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off? Who's that? And what does it mean that he's going to be cut off? It says, but not for himself. So, wait, time out. He was going to die, but not for himself? So who did he die for? Who is this? What does it mean by him being cut off? And why was he not, why didn't he die for himself? What does that mean? And you're going to come out with some bug. Oh, it's Israel. You know what I'm saying? That Messiah is Israel. Damn, y'all got to read, man. Y'all can't read between the lines. Says for himself, right? No, no, no. That's the nation. Anyway, it says, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. So the people of the prince is talking about the Romans. All right. And they came, and as happened, it says, shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, right? Which they came with their armies. Yeah, Khan, Daniel, he didn't see that. He just wrote it. He just made it up. I know, because I don't understand. I overstand. Yo. But it says here, and unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. Verse 27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Right? So that 1 week being 7 years, you had, and that was from 66 to 73. All right. And the Caesar at the time was Nero. Okay. So for 1 week, and it says, and in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate. So who made what desolate? When the Romans came up in there and they besieged Jerusalem, and then they broke it down and destroyed it and burnt the temple and so on and so forth, they made that desolate. They made Jerusalem desolate. Okay. It says, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So in the midst of the week, roughly around 70 AD, right? From 66 to 73, roughly around 70, they came, they besieged, they broke down, they destroyed. And that started that falling away, because you had a lot of Jake that fled, okay? But you had some that stayed and got destroyed. Because the siege, when they came, remember, from Rome, you got to cross from Europe up into the east. And then you got to keep coming, and then you got to start coming down from, I don't know how good this depiction is, but anyway, from Syria, start coming down Galilee, start coming down Samaria, start coming down Judea, right? So you had Jake that were fleeing from Galilee, because as the Roman armies were coming, they were coming from the top and sweeping down. And it started with Vespasian. He came with Titus. After a period of time, Vespasian left, and he left Titus in charge. So a lot of Jake were fleeing from Galilee and Samaria on into Jerusalem. And why? Because Jerusalem was a fortress, right? It was made to withstand sieges. So they were fleeing in there so that they can, they can be good in there. But then, of course, you had, when you read the history, you had certain zealots who, trying to spark up that fighting spirit in Jake, they burnt all the provisions that were in Jerusalem that would have allowed Jake to withhold for a longer period of time. And really, it was the Most High that did it, because the point of bringing this siege wasn't for Jake to withhold. It was for them to be destroyed and for that land to be destroyed. All right. And for the temple to be destroyed. It was a part of the wrath. Okay. Now, this is a book called From Babylon to Timbuktu. Good book. All right. You should definitely, I definitely recommend brothers invest in that if you haven't. And there's certain things in there that they go off on, but for the most part, it has some pretty good stuff in here. Now, when you go to page 84, it says here, the second paragraph in page 84, as you can see, I have it highlighted. And it says, in the year 65 BC, okay, Roman, not to be confused with AD, right, 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. So in 65 BC, you had Pompey come over, took over, and at the time you had the Hasmonean dynasty, which was Jake in power. But when Pompey came there, there was like a civil war going on between Hyrcanus and Aristobulus, which were brothers, right? And, you know, little drama going on, whatnot. Pompey came there and said, look, y'all are under us now. We're going to make you a province. Okay, then you had Judea, the province, right? You're now under Rome as a province, meaning you pay tribute to us, right? Remember, it says he was going to make a covenant with them. And so long as you pay tribute to us, we'll let you keep your customs, but you can't have any kings. So you wonder why in the New Testament there wasn't any Israelite kings. They didn't allow us to have kings. All right, only high priests. So that's why in the New Testament the high priest was sort of like up there, right? And then they set up the Herodians as kings over us because the Herodians were really under them. But it says here Pompey captured Jerusalem. Then it says in 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state, right? Remember Daniel 9:27, in the midst of the week, right? He shall make it desolate. He shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. How so? By destroying the temple. It says, put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter because of that siege. During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed. So Rome, Pontius Pilate was set up by Rome over us. Today you have mayors and governors and so on and so forth, right? Different states and different governors and mayors over those states under the federal. So you have Rome, then you had the Roman provinces, and then you had the procurators or presidents, you know, that were put over the various provinces that would serve out their terms. So when you read in the book of Acts dealing with Paul, and it says that they sent him to, I forgot the exact location, but the jurisdiction, it said that where Paul was captured, right, when the Roman centurions took him because Jake was trying to kill him, it says that they took him to another jurisdiction, which was a little more north, where you had Felix and Festus. So they were people that were set up. Now, I always mix up the two. I forgot which one came first. But one of them, either Felix or Festus, it said that seeking to please the Jews, he left Paul bound, right, until the next one came up in there. And it says when the next guy came, he came into the room, right, of the previous guy, meaning that when the previous guy's term was over, right, as governor or procurator of that jurisdiction, that land, the next one came in there and like a regular mayor or a governor, same way they did it back then, right? Which is even another example showing you the image, right? The ways of back then they have now, right? So that's why it says here under the military governors of Palestine, because that whole land where Israel is at, considered Palestine, was broken up into provinces, and then you had Romans that set up the governors and stuff over that, right? So these military governors, Gessius Flores was one of them. They were doing a lot of BS. That's why it says many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, right, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa. Now, Pompey to Julius, that was before 70 AD, right? Pompey to Julius Caesar, that was before 70 AD. But it says even at that time, you had over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, right? Then it says fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery, which went from Pompey to Julius, and from Julius all the way on down to Domitian. You had Jake that were constantly. Even an example would be Joseph, when him and Mary and Yahushua fled, right, over into Egypt as an example. And then of course they came back. But you had Jake that were certain Jake, nah, this is too much, I'm leaving, you know. And that really got exacerbated, or it got intensified when that siege came. Okay. And you had Jake was familiar with Africa, because when you go into Alexandria, Egypt, there was a big community of Israelites. All right. It says, fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. Yeah, because after they had besieged Jerusalem, there was a lot of Jake that they sold. They killed a lot of them and they sold a lot of them. All right. And so you had Jake that fled into Europe, fled into the east, fled south into Africa. A lot of them, northern, eastern, coming on down and settled around western, right? The western parts of Africa. And we stayed there. And we kept our, the various customs. We knew who we were because it was passed on generation to generation to generation. Okay. But there came a time when the Lord said, now it's time to send these devils, because during that period of time while we were down there, in Africa, in the meantime, you had Esau that was up in power, setting up the EEC, setting up America, the Treaty of Rome, and all these different things. The Lord was setting them up, really like taking them up, so that there will come a time when they will come and grab us up and bring us into slavery to really fulfill that falling away. Because we fled from Jerusalem, but we still knew we were Israelites. So when you go to the core of it, something happened that made us completely discontinue from all of that. Because they brought slaves, who knew they were Israelites, right? The Hebrews for sale. You had the land of Judah and all of this. But then during that 350-year period, that 40 and 2 months, is when they completely beat that out of us, when the Lord made us discontinue from our heritage. And after slavery, think of slavery like a machine. We came in as Israelites, we still had our customs, I should say, right? And even till now, if you go to like Ghana and different parts, they know that the ancestry goes back to the children of Israel, right? You have certain cities in Ghana that are actually biblical cities, Accra, Tema, all these places there. So they know. Nevertheless, put us in this function, in this slavery, and then we came out black, came out Negroes, came out Spics, came out Latinos, came out Dominican, Puerto Rican, Mexican, right? Boom. And not just the Southern Kingdom, the Northern Kingdom too. They threw us in this captivity and outward spat out people who didn't know their nationality, and the Revelation 11th chapter and the 8th verse, the dead bodies. Okay, so at that point, we were completely falling away. And we got so low that we not only did we not know who we were, we couldn't read and write. Right? We were brought real low because it was all part of the prophecy. That's right, the Igbo tribe. Okay? And I saw a brother put up a precept, GMS Australia 144, Jeremiah 17 and 4. And thou even thyself shall discontinue from thine heritage, which I gave thee. So what was the heritage the Lord gave us? Right? We are the children of Israel, the sons of God. We have customs, we have laws, we have statutes, we have traditions that set us aside from others. But we lost all of that. So you want to know how people, how are we the people in the Bible? Well, the reason we're so so separated and we look so different now is because the Lord had that falling away come first. Okay? Well, we fell completely. That's a part of the timeline. Right? So you had the beast starting, the overview of the beast, Revelation 13. Then you had the falling away, when you look on the Israel level, right? The overall level, you look on the Israel level, you had the siege, we fell away, we fled. So Jerusalem is destroyed. Okay? We're moving past 70 AD. And it wasn't just 70 AD. You had Jerusalem, but then you had the siege of Masada, right? Where there was another stronghold over there in Masada, where we held out a little longer, but they still got us anyway. So moving forward, you had Jake that was in Africa and different parts of the world, right? And then still grabbed our asses, brought us in slavery. So now let's go to the book of Daniel chapter 7. Let's see where that's at. Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. Okay. And it says here, matter of fact, I'll go up a bit. I'm gonna start at 21. Okay. It says, I beheld. Now in Daniel, it also makes reference to that, as we read in Revelation 13, we mentioned the 7 heads and the 10 horns, right? In Daniel the 7th chapter, it also talks about the 10 horns. Okay, show you talking about the same beast, right? So Daniel 7:21, it says, I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints. Now, the 7 heads and the 10 horns are back again today. Same people, different names. That's all it is. Israel is back again today. Same people, different names. You call yourself black, you call yourself this, you call it Jamaican, I'm Haitian. Guess what? You're still the Levites, just coming back, different name. Okay? So the Ostrogoths, Visigoths, Haruli, Suebi, Lombards, they're all back here again, different names. Okay? So it says here, verse 21, I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. So actually, let me actually go up a bit. Okay. So Daniel 7:19. It says, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. Now this fourth beast was the Roman Empire. The iron teeth and so on and so forth, that was the Roman Empire. Okay? It says, verse 21. Oh, no, Salakia. Verse 20. And of the 10 horns that were in his head. So that's how you know this links with Revelation 13. Okay? That beast rising up out of the sea that had 10 horns, 7 heads and 10 horns. Daniel also saw that vision making reference to that. But in here, he describes it as a beast that had iron teeth and it was exceeding dreadful. It says in verse 20, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, which we listed with the acronym Val-Hav-Sab, right? It says here, and the 10 horns which were in his head, and of the other which came up. So you had the 10 horns, right? And then you had the other which came up, and it's going to go into more detail. It says, which came up, and before whom 3 fell. Now, the other which came up among the 10 horns, right, was the, or little horn, was America. And out of the 10 horns, the one that the little horn came from was the Anglo-Saxons, all right, or Britain. Because America, the 13 colonies, came from Britain, okay? So if you go in this sense, it would have come from that Anglo-Saxons horn, which was one of the 10 horns, I should say. It says here, before whom 3 fell, even of that horn which had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. That's talking about Babylon. All right. Verse 21, I beheld, and the same horn made war. Now it says, before whom 3 fell. And the history of that was, you had the Spanish, the French, and the British who had colonized America, the Americas. There's actually a book, I don't know if I still have it here, but it's called, I think, The Lost Tribes, The Lost 10 Tribes or something like that. And in the book, it's during the 1500s, you had a lot of people that were trying to figure out, because you had Europeans that were coming to Americas. And there was this mystery of Jake already being in the Americas, dealing with the natives. And they called it the New World, right? But they said, hold on. We're not the first. When we came here, people were here already. So you had a lot of different philosophers and writers who were trying to figure out, they had different theories saying, well, how do we explain the people being over there? I thought we were the first ones, So how do we explain them? You had some that were saying they came by the Barren Straits. But then you also had some that were saying that, hey, in the book of 2nd Esdras, these are the 10 tribes, the Jews, all right, that came over there. So all that was going on during that time period, okay? But going on, so you had the French, the Spanish, the British who had conquered or imperialized the Americas, okay? And they had taken different parts. Now, when the Lord raised up the 13 colonies and they had the American Revolutionary War against Britain, and they became America, their independence, then they fought the French-American War and the Spanish-American War. So I think it might be that. Lost Tribes and Promised Land. I think it might be that one. Khan, the water. And they had those wars, and then they pretty much kicked out those the French, the British, and the Spanish. So that's why in Daniel 7 it talks about you had that little horn that came up before whom three fell. So that little horn was America, and the three that fell before it was the French, the Spanish, and the British. Okay? It says, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. Verse 21, I beheld, and the same horn, so America, right? That horn made war with the saints, which are Israelites, and prevailed against them. And that's how our asses got here in slavery. You had, what was that? The Mayflower, if I'm not mistaken, that was the name of the ship that brought the slaves. You know, but then you already had Jake that was enslaved over here. And when the Europeans enslaved the Israelites over here, they didn't just keep them here. They actually had a slave trade where they took Jake, right, Northern Kingdom Jake, from here, Europe, you know, to make them slaves over there as well. Okay, which is even more proof that Jake was scattered everywhere, because, like the brother just put, he sailed with Hebrew interpreters, and one of them's name was Luis de Torres. You could look him up. He was a Jew. So what business was he doing over there? You know, because you had Jake up in Europe until they started persecuting. I think, where was it? Was it Spain? I forgot where exactly it was, but you had Israelites that were in high positions over there. But then they started to give out these decrees where they would repossess a lot of Jake's wealth, you know, and Jake had to flee, and they pretty much took our stuff from us. You had inquisitions where they would come, and that's where you got the term crypto Jews. A crypto Jew was one who was a Jew inwardly, but he had to act like he was a Christian or of another faith, or, you know, whatever, so that they wouldn't kill him. You know, so inwardly he would try to do the practices, but it was hard because you had snitches and spies. But outwardly, they would make inquisition. They would question people, like they did during the time of, what's this guy's name? When they were persecuting the Christians, I forget what this guy's name. Tur something. Nevertheless, he used to send letters to what was the king, the Caesar at the time? Was it Trajan? He used to send letters to one of them, basically as they were questioning the Jews, the Christians. They were questioning the Christians, you know, saying, oh, this, that, would you do this? And they would find out who were the true Christians and who was not. I forgot. But that was also an example of an inquisition, right? The good ship Jesus, Serval, Spain, was the backbone. The water. Yep. And Granada, Spain, you know, and they were kicking out a lot of, so this is all in the falling away. All these things happened, and they caused Jake to lose the knowledge of who we were, and it was really done by heavy persecution against us. Okay? Yep. I remember that. Torquemada, yeah, he was one of them. And they would persecute Jake, and so because of this, it basically forced a lot of us to draw back and start losing that. When you deal with Oliver Cromwell, right, dealing with the Stuart kings, all right, of Scotland and Ireland and so on and so forth, you had a lot of Israelites. King James came from a line of Stuart kings, which were Israelites. But when Esau came up in there, look up Oliver Cromwell. He's a prominent name in there. They basically cut off, right, the line of the monarchs, and then they set up their parliaments, you know, and so on and so forth. And then they started to deport a lot of Israelites, okay, from Scotland and Ireland, and taking them to different areas in Africa and different Brazil and different areas. And they also sent them as slaves to the Americas. So Jake wasn't coming as slaves from just Africa. They were coming from Europe. They were coming from all different parts. But the bulk of them were brought here to America, okay, because it was a part of the fulfillment of prophecy. So when it says that they wore out the saints, which we're going to get, when you actually go into the history and the details of it, there were a lot of things that they did to wear us out. And the Lord allowed it that prophecy may be fulfilled. So going back to Daniel chapter 7, verse, we were at verse 21. And I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. So even up until now, up until Yahushua comes and delivers us, that's why you have these devils on top. Okay? It says, verse 23, thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and tread it down and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue the 3 kings, which is America. Right? And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High. And the period of time where they really did that was that 350 year period, that 42 months, that 1,203 score days. Okay? It says, shall wear out the saints. You had the Jim Crow era, you had the chattel slavery, you had the buck breaking, you had the raping, you had all of these things. The killing, if you were caught reading the Bible, the punishment, if you were caught reading or writing, Jake were trying to flee from the south to the north, right? All of these things. It says that was them wearing out the saints. Okay, I think there was one American Dodger. Apostle Gabar mentioned that I think it was like a sport. They were playing basically a sport with Jake. I forgot exactly the details of it, but I think it was American Dodger or something like that along those lines. They had the Mammies, right? They had making fun of Jake. They would do minstrels, I think that was the name of it, where you would have Edomites paint the black upon their face and then big ass red lips, and they would come and act a fool on stage to make fun and represent Jake. So it says here, and meanwhile, all of this, we were the chosen people of the Lord. And they didn't consider that they were doing this evil. They didn't consider the latter end of all of this. African Dodger, Khan. Yep. And they did all of this, but see, Jake will look at us like the bad guys when we bring out this information, and they wonder, oh, you guys are preaching hate. Well, wouldn't we be right to be angry? Don't we have a right to be upset if this is what they've done to us? And now you're telling us to trust those same people? What changed? Nothing changing them. They do the same things now, just under a different guise. So it says here, shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given, right, into his hand. We were given into his hand. It says, until a time and times and the dividing of time, which is also another way of the 350 years. Okay, the time is 100, the times is 200, and the dividing of time is 50. Okay, which is 100 plus 200, 300, and then the half of the 100 is 50, 350. And we were given into their hands for prophecy to be fulfilled. Okay. Which is also spoken about in Revelation, the 11th chapter, right around the first few verses. Okay. It says, verse 26, but the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion and consume and to destroy it unto the end. Okay. So all going into that falling away and the heightening of it. All right. So next we have this, and Yahushua also mentioned this. All right. Here in the book of Matthew, that's also a part of this parable in here. Matthew chapter 25. Okay, this is Matthew chapter 25. And this is all going to lead, I'm going to tie it all in. This is all going to lead up to where we are today. Okay, but how did we get here? Where are all of these things? So Matthew chapter 25, verse 1. It says, then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. Now this parable Yahushua gave, the 10 virgins are Israelites, okay, broken up into 2 kinds. right? You have the 5 which are really of the elect, and they were the wise ones, and then you had the other 5 which were foolish. Verse 3, they that were foolish took their lamps, but took no oil with them, which the oil represents the true, correct, and deep understanding of the scriptures, the 100% truth. Okay, so they took their lamps. Now you have these foolish virgins. They know they're Israelites. They know certain things, but they don't have the oil. The oil is what keeps the fire going. They don't have it, which is the true and correct understanding of the scriptures, the fullness of it, the 100% of it, right? So they don't have that. They didn't take the oil with them. Verse 4, but the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. So who's the bridegroom? The bridegroom is Yahushai, right? And when did Yahushai tarry? When he went back to the spirit world. And he's been there for over 2,000, right around that span, 2,000 years, okay? And so for a period when Yahushai was up there, we slumbered and slept, which was a part of the falling away. Because it says they all slumbered and slept, the wise virgins and the foolish virgins. So when was that? That was when eventually we all, regardless of those that were of the elect and those that weren't, we all lost our nationality. We all lost our heritage. We all were brought down to the base form. Okay? It says, while the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight there was a cry made, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. So when we say that all these people in the past, those that followed the Lord back then are back here today, and when we say that those that came against the Lord are back here again today, yes, they are, because when the call was made and it says all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps, and that's when the Spirit entered into us, starting with our elders and apostles and their elders, okay, waking us up to the fact that we are coming back to our heritage, right? That we are the Israelites and so on and so forth. We all woke up again, okay? That this is us. But along in waking up, those that were of the elect and had the oil back then, they woke up with the oil. And those that didn't have it woke up without it. And that's why today you have a lot of different groups, and a lot of them, they may teach you that you're an Israelite. They may go out there, they may prophesy, but they don't have 100% correct understanding. And then you have us, right, starting with the elders and apostles of Great Millstone on down, who have that, and if you teach the same thing, have that that oil, okay? So the same generation that was back then is back here again today, all right? It says, then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps, and the foolish said unto the wise, give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out. But the wise answered, saying, not so, lest there be not enough for us and you, but go ye rather to them that sell and buy for yourselves. So the main point that I wanted to hit was when that cry was made and all the virgins arose, and that was the falling away period ending, right? And us waking back up and us coming back, right? Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, the valley of the dry bones, that's what it looked like when we fell away, a valley of dry bones. Okay, another precept for that is here in the book of Revelation. Get it real quick. Revelation chapter 11, verse 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. See, so that was what we look like, our dead bodies, right? Us in the falling away state, all right, us in the low state, being worn out, that 40 and 2 months, that time and times in the dividing of time, okay, as it says, shall lie in the street of the great city, okay. But then, and that was when we were slumbered and slept, okay. And then when you jump down to the 11th verse, it says, and after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from the Most High entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. And that's when the spirit of life entered into us, and then you had the pretty much in Matthew 25, you had that cry that was made, okay? And we all arose. Like it says, we stood upon our feet, an exceeding great army. Okay, and fear fell upon those that saw it. So now, right now, we've gone from the beast. We've gone from John seeing these revelations. We've gone from the falling away, right? And now we're at the point of the waking up, right? We've woken up, the revival. All right, the Lord has revived us. We know we're Israelites. We know we're the prophets. We know about our power. We know the name of the Lord. We know the name of his son. And that's why we push it so hard, because we had lost it for so long. And the scriptures say, seeking the Lord, right? When you come back, seek him 10 times more. So that's why we go so hard on the name of the Lord, because we have to. You know, the Lord has finally given it to us and reviving us again. And that's an example for those that don't want to use the name. That's an example of not taking oil. You know? But us waking up is now a problem, because this is what's happening with Israel. But on the meantime, right, what's happening with the beast as all this was going on, they still had their plans, right? every so often testing out different world events as simulations for that ultimate world event. And what is the goal of all this that they're doing? That NWO. Okay? So as they're doing all of this, and the Lord is taking us through this, we're falling away, we lost who we were, but and now we've come back. Now they're like, oh shit, pause. What's going on over here? All right? And this is a problem. And so, because they're a part of their plan hinged upon us being asleep. And remember, the statement that Paul made was that there has to be a falling away first, and then the man of sin be revealed. Okay, so the fullness of it in this time is when we woke up. What do? We're revealing this devil. Okay, lifting up the skirt, making bare the leg, uncovering the thigh, bringing out all the things that this devil has done, making it all, publishing it, making it public. Okay, so now what is this going to lead to? The fact that we've woken up and great fear has fallen upon those that have seen us, right? Now Israel's woken up. This devil is ready to implement his NWO. All right, this beast and this animal, this wild barbaric animal. Revelation chapter 12 verse 17. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and the woman is Israel, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, right? Which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Yahushua HaMashiach. And so that's where we're at. They're getting ready to make war, all right, with us, because when you're trying to conquer and there's an enemy in the way, you got to go to war, take them down, and then have that, have that authority, that power. So we are really starting with Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, but we are an obstacle in their way of the total world domination, the total conquering of the world. This whole situation that's been going on the past year and going on 2 years would have been much easier and smoother for them if we weren't here. All right? Because the deception would have been working nicely. But, sorry to ruin your plan. So that's also one of the reasons why they're wroth. And they know they have a short time. So fast forward to today, they set up Q camps, and they're getting ready to start grabbing people up and throwing them in there. When you go to 2 Ezra 16 and 70 on down, it talks about the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you. That there shall be an insurrection in every place and in the next cities on those that fear the Lord. Okay? Because once again, he's coming to make war with what? With the remnant of her seed. Okay? And so now, let's take it back to Revelation 13. Now we stopped at verse 8. Okay? And now I'm going to come down and continue from verse 11. It says, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Now, first beast, the second beast, they're all Edomites, right? But you notice that in verse 11 is talking about the beast, but it's highlighting America, right? Dealing with the 2 political parties. That's the 2 horns, okay? The Democrats and the Republicans. It says, and as a lamb and spake as a dragon. So they gave the appearance of harmlessness, but their actual policies and their actions are a complete opposite. What's a perfect example? Joe Biden. 100% perfect example. He came up in there, yo, we're going to stop this thing. We're going to shut it down. We're going to reparations. We're going to fix this. Unity. And all you see around you is division. All right? Came as a lamb, spoke as a dragon. It says, and then it's going to get much more worse. These Vanessa mandates are little steps, a little. He's showing his teeth. That's what it is, and he's about to breathe fire on your ass real soon. Okay, verse 12, and he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and that first beast is the Roman Empire. Okay, so they're using the things that Rome did now in this time, in this modern day Rome, because it's them coming back again. It worked for them then, so they're doing it now. But now they're polishing it and they're furthering it. Okay, and that's where you get the NWO. So it says, and causeth the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. So how are they worshiping the first beast? Well, when they take the systems and the ways and the methods of the first beast and they bring it now into the modern society, and people are down with that system, those people are indirectly worshiping the ways of the first beast. When they take Saturnalia and they call it Christmas and people are all into it, these people, they're celebrating Christmas not knowing that they're honoring that feast, or that feast that they used to have back in Rome. Okay? All of these terms, the medical terms, the caduceus, all these things that go back to the Greco-Roman Empire, they rename it. It's the same thing, and people accept it and they bow to it and they love it and they honor it. Guess what? You are the root of it. You're honoring that system from back then. Okay. It says here, it's like I don't know if this is a good example, but say you got, I don't know, you got like some food, right? You got some food, you show it to somebody, they're like, nah, I don't want that. That don't look good. Okay, cool. So they leave. And then they come back and you got another one. This one is looking all nice and shit. They're like, yo, what's this? So they dig in. All right, they dig in and they eat it. And then later on you tell them, yeah, really, what you just ate was the food that I had before. I just polished it up and made it look a little different. So it may look different, but when you ate this food, this new plate that I gave you, you were eating the same food from before. It just looked different, So you take the same ingredients, the same material, put it here, present it differently, and then it's the same thing. And when they eat this, they're really eating the old one. Okay, so when they worship this system, they're really worshiping the original system. So it says, keep going, Revelation chapter 13, verse 13. It says, and he doeth, and he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And they do that with their atomic bombs and so on and so forth. All right, they had that Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and even after that, NATO recently they dropped a bomb, I think in Afghanistan, called Moab, the mother of all bombs. These are examples of fire coming down from heaven. Okay? It says, verse 14, and he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. And how are they performing these miracles? By way of their technology. Okay? To say that you can put a charagma in somebody's head, to heal problems, to allow somebody to send a tweet from the thought of their mind, to be able to put you in the metaverse of virtual reality and have you do all this, to walk again, to make you see again, to make you hear again, to transplant a pig's heart. Technology. And they deceive people with it. They entice them. And ultimately, they're going to deceive them to take that. Okay? Because they're going to tell them, make it seem like this is salvation. Because all the hell that's going on, all the troubles that people go through, they're going to present that thing, right? This is the new thing, right? This. So when you see this, you know what I'm talking about, right? The MOTB. So they're going to present this as the solution. Okay? It says, and he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth. So here we are, right? Saying to them that dwell on the earth, the whole earth, that they should make an image to the beast. They should make an image to the beast, which had a wound by a sword and did live. So now here you go. If this was talking about Cesare Borgia, right? You mean to tell me that they said, hey, everybody here on the planet, let's make a picture of Cesare Borgia. Let's make this picture. And it says here, make an image to the beast which had a wound by a sword and did live. So was that Cesare Borgia? They stabbed him up a couple times. He died, but he came back to life. And they said, oh shit, look, it's magic. Let's make an image of him. All right, guys, this is what we do now? No. Okay? This is talking about that system of the system of the ancient pagan Roman Empire. Okay? They're taking that, okay, and they're adding to it to lead to that NWO. But the core of it goes back there. Okay? That's their foundation. All right, which had a wound by a sword and did live, as we read about them. We read about them having a deadly wound, but then the deadly wound was healed. And so we are here now because it says they said to those that dwell on the earth, right? They said to those that dwell on the earth, and that's in essence they do that, or they're doing that now via problem, reaction, solution, the Hegelian dialectic, right? So how do we say to you, let us do this? This is a new agenda. Let us do this. Everybody join. How do we say that to you? Is it by just coming and making an announcement saying, hey, we have a new idea and we would like everybody to join? No. The way they say it to you is by the problem. A problem is an indirect way of trying to pose a solution to somebody. When you have ideas that you want to pitch, how do you convince somebody to support your solution? By showing all the problems that your solution can fix. So in most cases, when somebody comes to pitch something to you, they don't just pitch the solution, they show you the problems, and then they pitch the solution. You see? And they look for problems that you really would like to get rid of. That makes their solution seem much better. So instead of just coming to you and saying, hey, let's make a car. You down? They could say, yo, you don't get tired of walking everywhere you go? Like, what about when it rains? What about when it snows? What about when you're carrying mad heavy stuff? What about when you need to take a lot of things from one place to another? Every day you got to walk, you got to carry, you got to do all this. They start with the problem. And now you're like, yo, that's true. You know what we could do though? We could build a car, right? Like a machine, a thing where you just drive it. You know, whatever you got to take. Like, look how easy it will be if you put your stuff in the trunk, if you go shopping, if you pick somebody up. You know, if it's cold, hey, you'll be good. Yo, that's not a bad idea. You know? All right, let's do it. So now, what are they saying? We want to put something like this in you. Are they going to just come like, hey, give us your hands. We're just going to shove a few things up in there and get total control of you? That's not how it's going to work. You need a problem. Now, who are they addressing? They're addressing the whole world. So who's the problem going to affect? The whole world. So when you look at everything going on, 2019, 2020, you had a problem, a pitch. This thing was their pitch to the world, saying, let's make a new normal. Let's set everything up again. Now, this is our pitch. Look at what's going on. Everything is shut down. People getting sick left and right. You know, all this negative things are going on. The economy is trash, you know, shortages and all of that. You know, that's a problem. Don't you get tired of that? Wouldn't you want to fix that? You know? And if you want to fix it, it's a gradual step to fixing it. You know? And that step ultimately finishes off with this thing. Okay? And so this NWO, because this thing, right? This thing is going to play a big role, but it's going to play a role in society. You know? You can have a key, but if you don't have a door to put the key in, what good is the key? You see? So they're fashioning this new normal as the door. And what's going to be the key to this new normal? Right there. All right? So first they got to have the door and everything, have the lock. And then the last thing comes is the key. See? So that's why they've shut down everything. They're setting up these policies. They're saying this. They're setting up Q camps. They're doing all of this so that when the time comes, they can pitch their solution and say, here you go. Gonna give you this right here. You're gonna like it, whether you like it or yes. All right, so verse 15, it says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, which is that system, and meaning to revive it. It says that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Okay, and now you're seeing it on a lower level by the way they're persecuting and demonizing people that don't comply, right? Because if you're not complying with the system, you're not trying to worship that image. But they're going to make it to where soon non-compliance is not going to stop at just being ridiculed. Non-compliance is going to lead to death. All right. Verse 16, and he causeth all. So there you go. The word causeth. So now we've gone from all the way then to now. And you see how the beast has played a role in all of it. Okay. And now it says, and he, still talking about them, causeth. That's when you got to go up into the words. When you go into the Greek word for causeth is poeo, right? Which means to fashion or to make ready. And it says he causeth all. So who is the all? The world. Meaning making ready the world. Both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a charagma in their right hand, right, which is the dextos, or in their forehead, which is the metapon, right? And that's what Elon Musk is coming with that brain charagma, right? It says here, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the charagma, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And that's where we're at today. So all the things you're seeing now has all been in the works. It's written of in the scriptures, and the Lord gave these visions to different prophets, and now we have it so that we can have the blueprint as to what is going on, why it's happening, when did it start, how is it going to end, and what do we do? What role do we have to play in this? So we know all these things that are happening, and we know that what we're seeing right now is the causing. And once they've caused, right? Because to cause, I'm about to cause, and then I am causing, and I have caused, right? There's a process. I'm about to cause. I am causing. I have caused, right? And after I have caused comes whatever I have caused to happen. That's what happens. See? So right now they're causing. A couple years, when they started off with the masks and then they socialed it, they were, I am about to cause, right? Make ready. And now they are making ready. I am causing. And that's where these policies come into place, and desensitizing the people's minds and demonizing the truth and so on and so forth. I am causing. I am making people ready. So when I present this thing, they'll be good. And then when they present this thing, that's when I have caused. I have made them ready. And now, here you go. So when you start seeing this, that means that we are past the poeo stage, and we are now at the receiving stage, where people are receiving it. Okay? People are going to be receiving it left and right. So that's where we're at right now. Okay? In terms of prophecy, we are in the causing, getting ready to the receiving. We're not going to be receiving it, Lord willing. All right? But we're going to witness others receiving it. And these are all written in the scriptures. It's all biblical prophecy. Okay? So we're very, very close, because what comes after the receiving? The judgment, the destruction. Because that's going to be a penalty or a judgment for those that received. I am about to receive. I am receiving. I have received, right? And then after that comes the destruction. You know, so that's why we pray that the Most High speeds up these days so that they can start the receiving and the judgment can come, and then we can get delivered out of here. All right. And that pretty much concludes the lesson. And Lord willing, that was edifying unto the elect. I know it was a little lengthy, but Lord willing, like I said, it was edifying to the elect, and you can, have learned something from it and whatnot. But in closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakakudash. Until next time, Shalom.